Alrighty, today we're going to change the rear tire on a 2010 SYM Symba. There's been some talk on the forums about whether this is difficult or not, so I just want to do a quick video and show how easy it is. Between Rebecca and myself, we've probably done this about fronts and rears maybe 10 or 12 times, so we know a little bit about it, but hopefully this video will be some help for some people. Disclaimer, if you do this on your bike and it blows up, it's not my fault. Do everything at your own risk, it's life. What I'm talking about today, the Symba has bias ply tires. A lot of modern bikes have radial tires. Radial tires are much stiffer. So what I'm talking about today applies to bias ply tires. Anything you're going to buy for a Symba or most other scoots are going to be, well, many other scoots are going to be bias ply. So radials are much stiffer. They require some different techniques, some bead braking and stuff like that. So check out YouTube for other videos on that. The tools you're going to need today are going to be tire levers, lube, plenty of lube. That's probably the biggest thing with changing tires if you're not familiar with it. You're also going to need 8mm, 12mm, 14mm, 19mm wrenches or sockets, and an adjustable wrench, because the one on that holds the rear hub on is like a 22 or 23 that I don't have. You're also going to need an air pump, an air gauge, and handy would be a valve stem tool, which I'll show you in a second. If you don't have one, you don't have to remove the valve core from the valve stem, but it just makes it easier to deflate the tube. So I'm going to get started. The first thing you have to do so the SYM manual actually says you're supposed to remove the exhaust system entirely to remove the rear wheel. That's a very difficult task. I mean, it would take 20 or 30 minutes just to take the exhaust off. It's a pain in the ass. So we figured out a faster way to do it. The first thing you have to do is you remove the 3 8mm bolts on the heat shield on the exhaust. So they're just 8 mils. Take them, pop off the heat shield. That allows the axle to clear when you take it off. Then the other thing we have to do is take off the brake torque arm, or the brake stay, which is behind the exhaust system. There's a little clip that keeps it from spinning loose, and then that's a 12. That's a 12mm. So that's just a little nut. I don't know, Rebecca, if you can get over here and they can maybe see it a little bit better. But this is what actually keeps the rear brake from rotating within the hub. So it's a flat metal bar that runs from the swing arm area back to the rear hub. So it's just a single nut and a couple of washers, a flat washer and a split washer. The split washer goes closest to the nut. So we'll just take those off, set them down, and then there's a funny little captive nut that's on the back of it. So we'll just keep all that together. And you can see in the end of the bolt there's a hole that the clip goes through. So that clip just goes through there, and that keeps you from losing your brakes if something fails. So that's loose. Then the other thing we need to do is the rear brake arm, which is a long metal rod that has the spring on it. That's actually what applies rear brake pressure. The easiest way to remove that is to depress the brake pedal. While you're depressing the brake pedal, you just reach back and grab the arm that runs sort of straight up and down. Hold on to it. You'll see the funny little barrel-shaped nut on the back comes loose. Usually you can just take it off with your fingers unless it's really crudded up. But if you need to take it off with a wrench, that's a 14. So you can just get that twisted off, kind of keep an idea on how many threads we're showing, so when you go to put the brake back on, you have an idea of where to put this nut back. So once we get that unscrewed, then we slide the lever forward by depressing the brake pedal, and it removes this little guy, this little nut here. It's got a funny little dish on the back of it, and then in the middle of that brake lever, we can get it to fiddle out, there's actually this little keeper. So this actually sits up against this, the rod passes through it. You don't want to lose the spring. Always make sure you put the spring back on before you put everything back together, then you'll have brakes. So with that off, we're clear on this side. So we'll swing around to the other side of the bike. We'll take the 19mm wrench, which is what actually goes on the axle. We'll hold the axle on the far side with a 14. And we'll undo the 19 over here. It might be a little crudded up, but once it gets rolling, you can get it rolling. If you got a 19mm socket, all the better. So that's the axle that holds the rear wheel on. With that 19 off, we'll come over to the other side. And you can see over here, this is the axle. We just pull the axle free. The chain adjuster comes with it, and so does one spacer. I think the easiest thing to do is just put everything together so you remember how it goes. With the spacer out, that off, the brake is loose, but it doesn't come out until you remove the wheel. The wheels on the Symbas are a little different than a lot of motorcycles in that the rear wheel itself is actually splined onto a drive. So we want to wiggle that off and drop the whole wheel down. Now this is where you need either a lovely assistant or a block of wood that you can put under the center stand, because as you can see, the rear wheel will not clear the rear fender. So I'm gonna have Rebecca put the camera down real quick. She can be my lovely assistant, and I'll show you the way that, this is why you need to remove the exhaust so you can swing the whole wheel out, but it's simpler just to lift the back end of the bike up. The bikes only weigh about 200 pounds, so if you've had your Wheaties for breakfast, awesome. If you're by yourself stuck on the side of the road, you can actually remove the front wheel first. That allows the front end of the bike to drop down, and then the rear will just roll out, or we could just do this. So you ready? So just lift the bike up, roll the wheel out, brake falls off, and set the bike back down, make sure it's still on the center stand. So now we have the wheel off. We'll check the cush drive rubbers. Everything looks good here. Sometimes they collapse, they look pretty bad, but I haven't seen that on a Symba yet. I know Da Vinci had some problems with that. But this is the wheel, this is where the brake side sits in and everything. So once you have the wheel off, we're gonna undo and we're gonna let the air out of the tube first thing. What I have, and you can either get or make pretty simply, is a valve core tool. What that actually allows you to do is remove the valve core from the valve. If you want to hop over this way, Rebecca, so you can see. Either just let all the air out, or you can actually just take the whole valve core out. I always take the valve cores out because, I don't know, that's how I always learned how to do it, but you don't have to. So, just use that little tool, and it just unscrews like a screw. If I can get it in there. And there, it spat it out. So this little guy actually is the valve core. That's what actually keeps the air in and out of your tire. You want to make sure not to get grit or crap or anything on the O-rings on it, because that's what keeps the air in the tire. So now that we've got that out, we'll set that over safely. There's usually a nut of some sort that holds the valve stem to the wheel. This one's a knurled one. These are, I think this is a tube we got in India maybe or something, so it's a little bit different. You want to loosen whatever that nut is there. Sometimes there's one nut, sometimes there's two that are locked together. Whatever wrenches it takes to loosen it up. Loosen it up. And we'll just take whatever that nut off is. That allows you to take the tube in and out. Now I was saying earlier that these are bias ply tires as opposed to radials. Radials have very stiff sidewalls. They sit on a bead really tightly. The bead is a shouldered area inside the rim. And so you need a special tool called a bead breaker generally to break the beads on those. But on these bikes and on these wheels, they're almost like bicycles. You just want to go around both sides, break it loose. You'll feel when it pops loose. If it doesn't want to pop loose, just press it a little harder. So now we've got that loose. What we want to do is we want to take some lube. Now this is just dish soap and water. It's the best thing. They sell commercial ones and basically they're dish soap and water. I've changed tires for friends with tire changing machines and other things, and basically most people just use dish soap. The idea is to lube the rim up all the way around and also lube a little bit inside the tire. Now we've got that loose. This is where your tire levers come into play. I recommend against really long tire levers for these kind of tires because it's easy to bend and scratch a rim. What you're doing with the tire lever is you're just reaching under and grabbing the tire, trying to avoid the tube that's inside, and lifting it up over the edge. So that's one. Go around maybe a fifth or a sixth of the way on the wheel. Get your other lever in there. Sometimes depending on, it's pretty cold today, so these tires are a little stiff. So I'm gonna come back a little bit. Try not to pinch the tube because I'd like to reuse this tube if I can. There we go. So we just get that, and then we lift it over. See how it's starting to hold? If you notice, these levers are designed so they can tuck under the spokes. That's one way, so you don't have to have the second set of hands. Then we're just gonna work our way around, find some more areas. The The first one's tough, then they start coming easy. If it's not easy, put some more lube on there. You can just kind of play around a little bit with how much soap you put in there, but I put in a pretty good squirt of soap for a little cup. So now, see how easy that just pops off? So now that's off. If all you're doing is have a flat tire and you want to change the tube, you can do that right now without having to remove the other side. So we just push our valve itself through the hole, get it well inside, and then you can just pull the tube out. So if you're just replacing a tube, this is as far as you need to go. You can just pop a new tube in there. You are going to get grubby, so wear your grubby clothes. So that's the tube, that's out. Now we see that this inside of this tire needs to come off the same side, the top side. I'm working from the cush drive side. So again, lube is our friend. Wherever I put my paper towel. There we are. So we want to make sure we lube the metal up again, trying to get a little bit inside, so the inside of the rim is nice and slick. And then I also go ahead and lube up the inside of the rubber, because any mating surface with a little lube is a lot better. So I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, with enough saliva and determination, the elephant deflowered the mosquito, or something like that. So anyways, now we're lubed up here, and you should just be able to get your fingers underneath. Sometimes you can just yank them off. It's a bit of a cold day today, so the yank might not work, but it comes off pretty much that easy. So there's a tire off. Now with the tire off, we'll take a look at the rim. Because these are tube type tires, there will be a rim strip that runs down the center. It's this rubber band that runs down the center. You want to make sure that that's continuous and whole. If it's beat up, you want to replace it. The problem with that is that protects the tube from actually contacting their little screw ends on the ends of the spokes. If you have any loose spokes, this is a time when you can peel the rim strip back. It will take a flat blade screwdriver, and you can tighten up your spokes a little bit just by peeling back the rim strip and using a screwdriver on the tips there. All right, so we're going back. We're going cush drive side up. Let's put the new tire on. This is an odd Dunlop we picked up in Malaysia. Natural rubber, they say, lasts longer. That one that came off was from India. Same idea, Dunlop, natural rubber. People seem to swear by them. So some tires will have a direction of rotation on them. Some of them won't. There'll be an arrow pointing, and that means you want the arrow to roll the direction the bike is rolling. This one doesn't have one, but as I recall, the Dunlop D arrow, it's a unidirectional tire, so it really doesn't matter. Big bikes it matters, but this it doesn't matter so much. Sometimes tires also will have like a little dot stamped on them, or a little mark at the rim, and that's to tell you to line that dot up with wherever your valve is going, because the valve's a little bit heavier, so it's a balance mark on the tire. These don't have a balance mark, so we're really not worried about it. They're unidirectional, so we're really not worried about it. They're a universal front rear tire. So we're ready to put the new tire back on. So once again, back to the lube. We'll lube up the top of the metal. We'll lube up the inside of the tire, nice and extra. So just make it go on nice and easy. Now when you're putting tires on, one of the things you want to do is make this bottom edge that's closest to you sort of down in the groove with the rim strip. That gives you a little extra space on the top if you think about how the tire is cocked. But once we're in that area, we just press it on, and if it doesn't want to go, you can always get a tire lever in there and just, oh, now it doesn't want to play. Yeah, it's a cold, these are cold tires today. I prefer to leave them out in the sun to let them warm up, but that wasn't really an option today. Our 60-degree day did not materialize. So now we're on. So that's the first side on. And this is where you would be if you were changing to a new tube. My previous tube looked pretty good. I do have a new one, but it doesn't appear that I pinched the old one anywhere. So I think we're just going to reuse this one. Since I've removed the valve core, now is the time to put it back in. So we'll just drop it back in there. Find my valve core tool, and you just screw it down until it's snug, because it's got O-rings in there. You don't want to over tighten it, you don't want to pinch anything, but you just want to keep it get it in there snug.